To get ready for the April 8th eclipse report, we have to start today so that we can prime the pump and cover all the players on the board. This is the natal astrology report for April 8th. Everybody's there, and we're going to go over some of the major players. Today, we're talking about Chiron or Kieran, depending on where you're from. And it's also going to be the start of my asteroid series because I think we should start going over these asteroids. We have a lot to cover today. We're going over the myth of Chiron. We're going over the orbit, which is so important. Then we're going to cover what it means in Aries and look at the Gene keys and the I Ching. And then we're going to do the houses and the planets to talk about how it is affecting you. So buckle up. First announcement. First of all, I wrote a book and it is ready for pre-order. You can order it at the link in the bio. It is all about how to make a vision board using the modern manifestations and all the information that you need, including absolutely outstanding imagery. This book was supposed to actually come out on the 8th, but because of what's going on the Red Sea, it did not. So it's been tied up until May, but either way, I feel like the eclipse was probably going to outshine it a little bit. And I have so much more content to go with the book that I'm going to be talking about soon. A lot about manifesting with the planets and all of the science behind manifesting. Second thing is I just added a new course, Chakra Tune-Up Guide, $7. Made it easy. And it's just the lead up to if you want to take my Preserve and Protect Your Energy course, which is $70 now because I updated that. You will get just like a first real understanding of energy clearing before you graduate into this bigger, more intensive course that has everything that you need to keep your energy attuned, finely attuned. The next thing that I'm going to add to it, and I'm not going to raise the price, and you get any updates and stay at the price that it's at. So the people who got it for $7 a year and a half ago, they still get these updates, is Reiki for pets. So that's going to be added. And then I think also just like protecting the ward of your house, meaning talking to the elements outside to protect your house. I'm going to add those two in the upcoming months, but there's so much content there now. You will love it. Other than that, first-time subscribers get 20% off the website. Subscribe to the newsletter. You get updates on all of my promotions and what's growing in the garden this year to get ready for the next season of tinctures and teas, which I'm selling out of. So if you want to get those, get them fast before I have to just wait for it to grow again. For this season coming up, I'm going to do like a farm share program so you can order prior to the grow. Okay. Other than that, we're about to get into Chiron, and I'm going to call it Chiron because I'm fancy. Chiron and the myths associated with the asteroid. Why am I starting with Chiron? Because let me tell you something. On the day of the eclipse, we have the sun at 19 degrees. We have the moon at 19 degrees, obviously, because they're smashed together. We have Chiron, 19 degrees. We have the North Node there. Everything is kind of leading up to this point. And when I look at planets that I really want to cover, I'm always looking at the orbital pattern of these planets. And there's a couple of really important keynotes here, but I think that the message is so prevalent that it had to be, okay? And you will know by the end. So let's go into what this planet means and what it's trying to tell us, okay? So most astrologers are going to relate Chiron to the wounded healer. And there's a very good reason for that, and we're going to talk about it. First of all, there are a few myths associated, and some of them say that Saturn was his father. Some of them say it was not. Where I'm going to focus is more on the larger aspects of these mythological elements to go into where I think it's taking us, okay? So first thing you need to know is that unlike traditional centaurs, he does not have the half man, half horse thing going on like everybody else. Let's go over centaurs a little bit because they are half man, half animal. And in mythology, they kind of represent the worst aspects and the worst qualities of those two elements, where they're incredibly hedonistic and they are very animalistic, and they only live in nature. They don't want to partake in society in the same way. There's a story of them causing a brawl at a wedding that it just gets completely out of hand. They even take the bride and just like go off to have their way with her. And I always think of centaurs in this way being related to the shadows of man, are connection to our animal nature, and where Chiron, because his legs are only at the bottom, he's not really a full centaur. He doesn't fit in with the pack, and he doesn't associate with himself with that group. And it reminds me of, us stepping out of our shadows, out of this savage version of ourselves, utilizing just our survival portions, and to this other being that has transcended these elements or this nature. Chiron is all about trauma survivors, okay? None perfect birth. Mother was taken advantage of against her will. Father, full jerk, okay? So think about ancestral wounds, coming into this world from a traumatic place, being abandoned and orphaned, and utilizing this aspect of yourself to then become a healer, and be the trainer of the children of the gods, and to be upheld as the healer, to be taught the stars and astrology and all about herbal medicine and all about wound healing. This being was able to transcend his upbringing and bring his gifts to the world. Now, the story goes that either at the wedding that the centaurs were at, so he's got his animal side and the civilized wedding, these two aspects that he's there, where Zeus has to stop the brawling horses from taking away all the women. He fires his arrow and it has poison on the tip, and it lands and it hits Chiron by mistake. So he is poisoned. Now, because of his upbringing, he is a part God and he's a part human. So he's immortal, but he is wounded for life. So the story goes either that this wound that Zeus had picked up from killing this beast and utilizing his blood to make this poison, this wound may have come from Chiron himself. Because he was this healer, he was an alchemist, he may have created this poison for Zeus with this blood, and he could have hurt himself in this outside way, right? Or either way, there was no healing that could be done to reduce the pain or the wound. So you have this immortal being who doesn't really fit into society, who doesn't fit with the centaurs, and doesn't really fit with the humans, he's here stuck on Earth in tremendous pain. And it doesn't stop him from working, but he's living in this torment, and he's supposed to do this forever, okay? So Prometheus, who is very closely related to Uranus, and you'll know why that's important in the next segment, he is who brought fire to man. Okay. He stills the fire. He brings it down to man. So in some essence, he brought us light. He brought us warmth. He brought us food in a lot of ways. He's associated with the god Uranus, like lightning strikes and just like this change on Earth that's so poignant, yet he got punished for it. And so he's whipping around in space, attached to a fire rock, just going in circles. Okay. That's his hell, for all of eternity. But Chiron sacrifices himself and decides to take the place of Prometheus, in essence, surrendering to his pain, to live out the rest of his life in this punishment because he was already in pain. Okay. What's more pain when I'm already in pain forever? And in this surrendering of himself, he was looked kindly upon and now has the job in the heavens that he has now, and was introduced to us in 1977. That is when we discovered him, when he was making an aspect to Saturn, which Saturn and Uranus are very closely related. We'll talk about that. But for a minute, there are a couple things I want you to think about. One, I am of the belief that at certain points in our history, certain planets, certain asteroids, certain things are seen in the sky when they are supposed to be seen, as in when Pluto was discovered, that was when Pluto was supposed to be discovered. When Uranus was discovered, that's when it was supposed to be discovered. And we have reached these new levels of involvement when these planets come around. And Chiron represents this involvement of our inner childhood wounds, our traumas from birth, our traumas from existing on this earth, these places where we may have wounded ourselves unknowingly. He may have come around because it's time to take note and it's time to see how we can utilize this gift curse, where we can surrender to be held up higher, to actually use our gifts in a larger way. And that's the journey we're going on today. This is the orbit of Chiron. Kieran, I don't know what I'm going to bloody say. Just, okay. This is the orbit, okay? Orbits matter in astrology. Orbits tell you a couple of things. Let's take Pluto, for instance. It's a large orbit. It literally sparks new generations to be born, okay? So that means that whatever energy comes through with that orbit is going to take longer to transpire, and it affects all of us. While the moon goes around so quickly, it's this short orbit around the earth, it's going to affect you on a more personal level. These are interdimensional energy waves. Think of them coming at you in a circular manner. We talked about this bubble yesterday. And when we talked about it, think of it like encompassing energies. So Chiron encompasses Mars, Jupiter, Venus, the Earth, and Saturn. Mars, Jupiter, Venus, the Earth, and Saturn. All. The Earth, you. Okay? Saturn, what you build. How you learn, how you get your lessons. Mars, your passions, how you move forward. Venus, what you love that tells you where to move forward, the desires, right? It's all Jupiter, your expansion, where your luck is, where you grow, the areas that you're focused on growth. All of these are affected by this wound, this deep, this dark, this desire within you that cannot be fed. The only option is to give, to feed others, to surrender. Okay. It's encompassing all of this. It's all working in the direction of, and here's the thing. It might not have Uranus within its circle. It's on the outside talking to Uranus. Okay. Change. Let's bring the knowledge of change in through this wound, okay? I'm taking this wound, I'm taking this deep desire, and I'm going to teach her how to build it in Saturn. And then I'm going to make sure her passions are going toward it. And I'm going to make sure that it's what she loves. And I'm going to make sure that she can grow it. It comes from that place, okay? I talked to you the other day about the Big Bang being an implosion. And that spark and that desire comes from this deep well of unknowing, of where you can't heal, of where you continuously work to grow, but it's always going to ache at you just a little bit because it's so much bigger than that. It's what you really came here to work on, to build community. Okay. And it is where you are going to get the hint, the idea, the inspiration of where you are focused and what you're trying to heal based on that focus. Where you can't sleep at night unless it gets done is your greatest wound. What you are willing to give up for anything, okay? That's where your job is to feed others and to continue to go there until you can get it done. And when you go there, what's your job when you get there? Is to surrender. Because when you surrender, you get swept up in the current of the magnipole and you just go in the harmony of, and it feeds you and you feed others, and it feeds you and you feed others. And that's how you heal. And that is how you get to that place where you have a death. Okay. We have many deaths. Every time you breathe out, it's a death. When you go to sleep, it's a death. Get over your fear of death. You have a death so that you then become the bigger teacher. You become the star in the sky and you can orbit to help other people with their passions, to help them grow in that area, to help them find what they love in that area. That is what you came here to do. And I knew when I looked at everything, because I decided what I'm going to talk about. And then I just start doing research to see if something sparks. And when I saw the gene keys and the I Ching, I said, I have to talk about this today. Let's go over that next. In I Ching, 51 means shock. Okay. I'm going to read this to you because I think it's too good to just leave it on the table. One hears thunder unexpectedly. First comes fear, then a sharpened vision. Recall a close brush with danger, a falling branch, a barely avoidable automobile accident, an escape from a violent confrontation. Such incidents arouse every nerve in your body, perhaps in a brief wave of panic. But soon, once the danger has passed, the initial reaction gives way to heightened awareness. The same process occurs with other types of shock: the loss of a job, the death of a loved one, business failure, and so on. The lasting impact of a major shock can be stimulating or debilitating, depending upon your perspective. The critical factor is a willingness to be open to fear rather than running away from it, enabling you to transform anxiety into laser-sharp perception. There can be a positive side to shock. When overtaken by crisis, the wise look within and search their hearts for strength to face the world with courage. Courage can mean daring to take the unexpected path, to bounce back quickly after failure, or to have the faith in the meaning of life when confronted with great loss, even death. We tend to think of shock only in terms of unpleasant events. We can also be jarred, however, by the release of tensions that come with an unexpected success. To keep your bearings in the aftershock of either trauma or victory, it is essential that your inner compass be aligned with a magnetic force that guides you toward fulfillment of your deepest desires and your highest destiny. Prepare yourself to take some jarring surprises in stride. Meditate a little bit to find your center. A calm reaction to the losses and gains that may arise will help you surmount these shocks to your system. Now we're going over the human design. The gate of shock is connected from the heart to the G center. So it's like our actual compass on earth to our heart, our greatest fulfillment. It's the energy for individual initiative, okay? Backed by the ego's will and courage, it embodies the power to compete, driving you to be one step ahead of everybody and risk going where no one else has gone in order to find and create a place for yourself. You are designed to withstand shock and to shock others, to move them out of the complacency of their safe cocoons and direct them through personal transcendence and self-love. Love for life itself and the constant competition that comes with the mastering the material world arouses and empowers you. In opposition to the courage and willpower that energizes you, however, is a potential for foolhardiness that endangers your vulnerable heart, both physically and spiritually. The secret to maintaining your heart's health is to center yourself by attuning it to your strategy and your authority. Do you have the will to engage in the battle? Rest and giving your heart what it needs is the solution here, okay? But when I show you the gift, it's going to answer everything. Through the agitation, which usually comes in the form of a shocking event, which could either be you win the lottery or you lose a loved one, or something could happen. I don't know. And I'm not going to pretend like I do. Okay, I don't use my gifts in that direction. I'm not going to fearmonger. But you can either choose to either go towards the shadow of this experience, meaning you become incredibly afraid and you become a coward, or you become incredibly hostile and you fight the wrong people. Or you turn in the opposite direction and you release yourself from the bounds of whatever is tethering you to this false matrix. And you forge ahead with your own creative force, which begins the process, okay, of opening the portal to waking up. And being awake does not mean you have all the answers. Being awake means that you clearly see through the veneer and you are aware enough to choose what parts of everything you take part in from a place of authority, a place of power. You see through the veil. You can't be lied to anymore. You can't be succumbed anymore. Something bigger is calling you, and you recognize that you need to be weightless. Okay. You recognize that you are a piece of the puzzle and that you don't fit up here, but within this sphere, and you become less inclined to compete with others because you recognize the game was all about yourself and that you're only playing chess with yourself. The rest is checkers. These motherfuckers are playing Uno. Okay. And that your power is over here. And that if you can surrender, this doesn't mean going around and waking people up. You get jarred. You don't jar. If you do need to jar, you know who you need to jar with. But this important point is coming up for me that says, imagine waking someone up from a deep, deep sleep and they're so pissed and they're so confused and they might just go back to sleep. You don't know what could happen. You should be able to nudge and someone wakes up. If you got to shake, that's not your destiny. Okay. Let's talk about Aries and Chiron next before we go over the houses and the planets. Aries and Chiron are new beginnings, everything about just a brand new version of reality, okay? Just even to note for the eclipse is the next eclipse is like 2079. You'll be dead, most of us will be. I know I'll be dead, I'm 40. So most of us will be at the end of our lives who are listening to this, meaning that this is gonna change something and it's a new energy we've never experienced before. The dirt is agitated because the plants are coming up. The worms and the bugs have come more to the surface and it's moving earth around. Wood is opening, allowing buds out, okay? That's the agitation. It is a feeling of probably a little bit of unrest before the growth, that splitting of the seed, that shooting through the soil. All of that is a lot of work. It's a force we have to push through. And I would say that being a fire sign, it can be quickly to temper. So be wary of the shadow of hostility. Or it could be quick to cowardness and just quick to taking on whatever fear is right in front of the face instead of utilizing your wisdom and your perspective to go further. You're going to feel this energy probably for 2 weeks, and it's already started. So start thinking about what desires have sprung forth for you and what ideas you have been just having around in your brain for the past couple of days. And it's probably going to just crescendo into whatever is happening. No matter who you are, this is affecting all of us. And while it's going to affect the fire signs in one way, earth signs, air signs, and remember, you are an entire chart. If you want a chart reading, click the link in the bio. You can get a chart reading from me. We go over the human design, the gene keys, tarot. We do the whole gambit. But you have to know that either, no matter where you are in this formula, this is a renewal for you. There's a new desire that was deeper than whatever came before that you are going to bring to the surface. And it's going to start off slow. When we do the eclipse reading, we'll go over the dates in the future, but something's going to spark it, okay? Chiron has been in Aries for a minute, but if you are in Aries, this is going to be really close to home. I'm talking to those who have Aries sun placements or a lot of planetary placements in these signs. Get your chart. You should be knowing this information. Look at where Chiron was. Look at where Chiron is. Look who was talking to Chiron, who's next to it, who was across from it, who was angled next to it, okay? Look at degrees. This will tell you everything you need to know. But if you are in Aries, this is really an important time for us. I'm a fire sign. When it comes to whatever we are sparking new based on what we've already done. 2 dates I think everyone should look at is around December 2020 and around June 2021. I like to go back through emails and photos, and it'll give me just an idea of what was happening around that time that I might see some sort of culmination with, okay? Because this is a new moon, I may have been working on something then, and a new portion of the garden is being sprung, or a new portion or element is being presented. Again, it's the Aries represents the soldier. We're all for going it alone. We're all for me's. Make sure that you are looking deeper within where your fire is to determine what you need to do with it. And I can get more specific with the houses. Taurus is an earth sign. So I say another thing I want you to look at when you look at your charts is if your Chiron is below the horizon and you're in the Western hemisphere, flip it if you're not in the Western hemisphere. If your Chiron is below the horizon, you're probably looking at something that's more internal. And if you have a Chiron on the other side, on the top, it's going to be something more in your reflection that you will see. Okay. But Taurus, is an earth sign. It's all about, earthly goods, tangible assets, what you feel on earth, what makes us feel good. If you have Chiron placement here, you have been trying to potentially build this area and you may find trouble with what you acquire asset wise, or, what you find beautiful, being able to get to that place inside of yourself where you recognize the value in the objective is no more or less valuable than internally, while still also being able to appreciate the values that you have. Okay. If you are a Gemini, you are an air sign, you might be getting communication through Kieran, and it could show up in the form of not feeling like you are being heard or not feeling like someone else is able to hear you. Geminis tend to do a lot of people pleasing, a lot of talking, and a lot of being able to word it so that they don't seem like they're so bad at it. There's a wound there with how you communicate to others and how others feel about your communication and where you hold responsibility in that area. Okay. How well can you hear? Cancers, mother nurturers. All right. Water signs. There's a womb close to the heart here with how you share your emotions. Maybe what you consider home or where you consider home, and how you defend yourself when you feel attacked or you feel like someone's trying to get close to the actual emotions that are going on inside of you. Leos and their authority in terms of how they are seen. How are you seen? How do you want to be seen? How important is it to be seen? How much of yourself have you placed in this aspect of needing validation from the outside world to feel like you fit in, or that you are being acknowledged for your gifts, or that you're being heard, or that you're being acknowledged for your talents or your beauty or your who you came here to be, your highnessness. Virgos, a perfection wound. How you organize and contemplate and look to clean up and make right. What's it all for? Is it because if it's not perfect, you can't continue to exist? What happens if it's not perfect? What's the fear on the other side of that perfection? Needing it to be just so that you can exist in a calm state or in a worthy state. Libras. How much are you willing to sacrifice yourself in this story that you create, that you told yourself for the other? Where are you willing to see your own patterns and your own story without looking at the other person and probably mirroring that information? Where's your judgment? How judgy are you? Where's your wound in judgment? And is it because you believe it about yourself, so it must be true about someone else? Scorpios, your secrets keepers, the closed off, not hermits of the zodiac, but mysterious being elements. If you have Chiron in Scorpio, who are you keeping secrets from and why? Where is this allure actually harming you? When someone sees you this way that you have presented that isn't necessarily authentic or isn't necessarily all of it, isn't the full story. Where can you allow your exoskeleton to soften so that others can get closer to you, okay? Sagittarius, my Sagittarius friends, you can't get there tomorrow. You have to slow down. If you have Chiron and Sagittarius, you might feel like you have been putting all of your fire in all of these places and you don't really know how to conquer them, or how to take the proper steps to get it done, or how to slow down and sit with yourself before the adventure. It's all about the archer who is running ahead. And Sagittarius and Chiron are very closely tied. It's in the constellation of. That's the story in mythology. And it makes sense because he loved art, because Kieran loved archery so much and because it's centaur. But this idea of being able to target and to be able to claim what you want based on knowing what it is that you actually truly desire is going to be very important. It's another fire sign. So it's all about those deep inner desires of what you want to charge forth with in the world, and where you feel like you might have reached some boulders in the journey. They were probably there to slow you down on purpose. Okay. Speaking of slowing you down on purpose, our Capricorn Chiron's is all about feeling like you got to make that climb so hard and so high all the time. And that if you don't work your ass off, then who's going to do it? And what's the point of it? And it has to get done this way, and it doesn't. Steady climbs get to the top at the right time. There's a timing approach to it. Okay. So remember that if space and time don't line up when you get there, you're just going to be waiting around anyway. You might as well have taken your time and seen the view. Aquarius is, again, a lot about communication and a lot about communication and a lot about the community at large. And there's a wound here about how you share information and what you consider of the collective, of the people in your larger circle and the world at large, where you see yourself in relation to them, and how you go about communicating the bigger vision. If you have a wound here, you might not feel like you were able to properly extend that message. Maybe you feel like you are isolated and people don't get you, and they don't understand that you're doing it for more. And Pisces, there's a wound in the womb of creativity. This idea of this going into that deep emotional space. You might have a hard time getting out. You might have a hard time with depression. Looking at this wound and this creative expression that comes from having emotions, emotions, and how that when those emotions get churned up, what's your strategy? How do you plan on moving them? Is it to sit and sulk, or is it to create something? How do you turn that darkness into light? To set the stage for more growth. It could even be thought of as compost. Death and decay makes compost, and it sets the seeds for the future growth. And how do you go about feeling about your childhood wounds and your trauma wounds, and what are you doing with them? Are you holding on to them, or are you composting them so that you can grow more? Are you surrendering them so that you have more dark matter to turn into light? Houses. Okay. First house and seventh house. That's what I'm going over. I'm going to go over them like that. All right. First house is all about the self. Okay. How other people see you, how you see yourself, your health, your wellness. If you have Chiron in the first house, you might be in pain. You may feel actual physical pain. And how you see your body as an external element outside of yourself will be very important. That's the wound, learning to collaborate with this vessel that you came on earth with. If you have Chiron in the seventh house. First, seventh house. Seventh house, partnerships. You have a wound around partnerships. It could be karmic. You don't know how to trust others, and you don't know how they see you as well. You are going to have to learn to surrender to trust, and that certain people are allowed to come into your life and let you down. And that doesn't mean that it's the end of the world. It just means that there was a lesson to be learned there. Second house Eighth house. Second house is all about the values, how you value the self. Eighth house is all about those external values, lottery, taxes, inheritance, appraisals, things like that. Second house values is, what do you think about your values? What are you here for? You might have a hard time making money. You may have a hard time keeping up with the money you make. You might feel insecure because you have money and you think that it makes you have this privilege that you don't like. It makes you uncomfortable. Where are you with your values? How do you value yourself, your body, your mind? You want to look at that. Third house, eighth house is all about those external values. What do you value about your home, your objects, these tangible assets that you acquire, money from other people? How do you feel about that? Do you have an insecurity about having objects? Do you have an insecurity about keeping them? Do you feel like you break them or lose them all the time, or you're not worthy of the investment from someone else? Do you have a hard time borrowing money, or when you give money, you don't feel like you get it back? Third house, ninth house. Third house is all about the community, close to home, education, and I like to think of it like the mind, while the ninth house is about philosophy, that higher education, that foreign travel, teaching, and high spirituality or religion. Okay, so third house is your mental health. If you have Kieran here, you might always be up in there. This might be a lot of anxiety, depression, stress. How are you self-talking? How are you self-healing so that you can then actually take the energy from here and move it to the heart? Ninth house, if you've been wanting to teach something and you feel like you have hiccups, or you have wanted to travel and feel like you have hiccups here a lot, not being able to ingest or give the gift of your larger teachings or those philosophies in that religion, or having religious wounds, being led astray in a deep religion or a cult could be here, being consumed by false teachers, giving your power away to these higher philosophies or these teachers or these other things. It could be the wound here. Fourth, 10th. Fourth house is all about the home, the family, what you call home, where you spend most of your time. And the 10th house is your career, your Midas touch, okay? Fourth house, Chiron, might have been a traumatic upbringing. Your wound here could be very much in relation to childhood wounds, finding some traumas from earlier in your life that you have to surmount. Always having problems with your house, maybe not having a house, maybe being houseless. Could be a wound from this planet, this dwarf planet, by the way. It's a mini planet. 10th house, getting your career off the ground. Mine is in the 10th house. It took me years. It was all about finding my voice. It had to be completely authentic or I was never going to survive there. Finding the way that you survive in the world, and having a wound there means that you have to try again, try a different way until you can be completely yourself in this space, and it happens authentically. I want to say something and I'll hold it for the end. So if you're watching this sign by sign, there's some more messages at the end. Let's go to the 5th house of creativity and the 11th house of how people see you creatively. 5th house, creativity, childhood, play, sexuality. If you have a wound here, you might find it hard to let go, to be calling yourself creative. It might feel wrong based on how you do it. It might not be fitting in with everyone else. How you play. Do you take yourself too seriously? Do you find yourself to be a bit rigid? 11th house, how does the public respond to this creative gesture? How they see you. You may be a giant people pleaser in this area and worry a lot about your reputation. Finding that people don't really see you how you want to be seen all the time creatively. They don't really know where to put you. And you might find it hard to share your natural gifts. And it's probably because you have to just be more of yourself instead of just pushing forward. And finally, 6th house, 12th house. Okay, 6th house rules daily habits. This is your health and wellness goals on a day-to-day basis. How you keep a schedule, what you do to keep yourself going day to day. Wounds here can lead to illnesses a lot, can usually lead to healers a lot. All about finding some potentially feeling lost on a day-to-day basis, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to move, or maybe feeling the opposite of that. Is like it's so rigid that you leave no space for anything else because of fear of the unknown. While the 12th house is the unknown. It's like how those day-to-day aspects matter. It's also the house of prison and, being locked in or stuck in. And I always think of it literally like, when you do your day-to-day habits, the things that drive your every single waking day, this is the expression of that on the outside, okay? So having it here might be you're in jail or been in some sort of mental home potentially, or feel entrapped by your mind or your day-to-day habits, feeling like the effort's not worth it, feeling some sort of melancholy in this area, or even working in law to help someone else, working to, reform prisoners, working on the behalf of those who have been chastised for their day-to-day activities, okay? Where this dwarf planet is in your chart and in the sign that it connects to, you must understand that what I think we are to know here is that the surrendering is the key. You can't force it, because when you force it, you're automatically saying to the universe, I don't have it. I'm not there yet. I don't know what I'm doing. It's in the effortless approach that you will find that you magically fit and find your way there. And in the forcing, you feel that agitation. And in the flow, you feel awakened. And so as I introduce that concept to end this, wake up, face your fears, allow the desire to spring forth, give it space to be there. And if you give it space to be there, automatically it will show up and you will know. You will know. You might not know immediately, but you will know what it is. Okay? I am Candace with Ludi Skincare. Thank you so much. I've lost my voice from this. We're going to cover the rest of this menagerie in the upcoming days. Thank you for being here with me.